The quantum spire hung in the void of space like a wounded leviathan, its once pristine crystalline structure now a jagged mess of fractured light and twisted metallic supports. Chief Engineer Zixtal of the Galactic Reconstruction Consortium had spent 3 standard cycles preparing for this moment, the most critical repair mission in recent galactic history. Nothing could have prepared them for the humans. The first indication that something was different came with the arrival of the transport vessel. It wasn't the sleek, precision-engineered craft the Zintok were accustomed to. Instead, a hulking, almost primitive ship drifted into the station's repair zone, its exterior covered in patches, scorch marks, and what appeared to be improvised reinforcements welded directly onto its hull. Jack Rodriguez stood at the airlock, checking his equipment with a casualness that made the assembled alien engineering team distinctly uncomfortable. He was a mountain of a man, muscles built from decades of physical labor, with hands that looked more like industrial tools than human appendages. A network of scars traced intricate patterns across his exposed forearms, each one a story of survival, each one a testament to humanity's remarkable ability to endure. "We're looking at complete structural failure in approximately 2.7 standard hours," Zixtal announced, their translator device converting the clicking language into crisp, clinical standard Galactic. The holographic display flickered, showing the quantum spire's critical weak points, a complex network of stress fractures that would have caused most engineering teams to retreat in terror. The human team didn't even seem to be listening. Maria Santos, the team's structural engineer, was busy reconfiguring what looked like a collection of mismatched tools. Derek Williams, ex-Marine and demolition expert, was examining the station's outer hull with a handheld scanner that seemed to be a cobbled-together mix of alien and human technology. "You realize the precision required for this repair is beyond typical construction methods," Zixtal continued, their multiple sensory tendrils twitching with barely contained anxiety. "The quantum stabilization matrix requires a level of mathematical precision that—" Jack cut them off with a laugh. Not a mocking laugh, but one that suggested he'd heard similar speeches 1,000 times before. "We rebuilt Miami after the megastorm of 2052, he said, adjusting a massive plasma torch that looked more like a weapon than a construction tool. This is just another Tuesday." The other Zintok engineers exchanged worried glances. Their entire approach to engineering was based on careful calculation, precise measurements, and millennia of accumulated scientific knowledge. These humans looked like they were preparing for a bar fight, not a critical space station repair. As if reading their thoughts, Maria spoke up. "Structural integrity is more than just numbers," she said, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen entire cities crumble and rise again. "It's about understanding how systems breathe, how they move, how they survive." Derek finished his scan and pulled out a series of tools that looked like they'd been modified beyond their original purpose. Cutting torches modified with alien tech, reinforcement brackets welded with a precision that suggested years of experience in the most challenging environments. Zixtal's translation device picked up Jack's next comment. "We've got one shot at this," he said to his team. "If we fail, millions die. Just like always." The casual way he spoke about potential mass extinction sent a chill through the alien engineering team. This wasn't bravado. This was simply how humans operated, as if every moment was a battle for survival, every challenge something to be overcome through sheer force of will and innovative thinking. As the airlock hissed open, the Zintok engineers took an involuntary step back. Jack Rodriguez stepped forward, his team moving with a synchronicity that suggested they were more than just a work crew. They were a living, breathing unit that had survived countless impossible situations. "Let's get to work," Jack said simply. The quantum spire's fate now rested in the hands of 5 humans who looked more like they'd just walked off a war-zone demolition site than a precision engineering mission. And for the first time in millennia, the Galactic Reconstruction Consortium realized they were completely out of their depth. The repair mission was about to begin, and nothing would ever be the same again. The moment the human team touched the first critical junction of the quantum spire, everything changed. Alarms blared in frequencies that made the Zintok engineers' sensory tendrils curl in distress. Where traditional repair protocols demanded careful, millimeter-precise interventions, Jack Rodriguez and his team moved like a controlled hurricane. Maria Santos was the first to break protocol. Her hands moved faster than the station's advanced tracking systems could follow, cutting through an unbreakable quantum-locked alloy with a modified plasma torch that left molten streams of impossible geometry. The Zintok lead engineer, Sub-Coordinator Vreen, watched in horror as she essentially performed surgery on the station's most critical support structure. "What are you doing?" Vreen screeched, their translation device barely capturing the pure panic in their voice. "You'll compromise the entire quantum resonance matrix." Derek Williams, standing nearby with a collection of tools that looked more like a mad scientist's experiment than precision equipment, didn't even turn his head. "We're saving your station," he muttered, his hands already reconfiguring a series of quantum stabilizers in a pattern that made absolutely no sense to the alien observers. Jack Rodriguez moved with a predator's grace, reading the station's structural integrity like most people read a simple book. Each touch, each modification seemed to communicate with the station's systems in a language beyond mathematics. Where the Zintok saw complex equations, the humans saw a living, breathing organism desperate to survive. "Structural stress at 89.6%, announced Araya, the team's eye assistant. Her voice was calm, almost bored, as if near-catastrophic structural failure was just another Tuesday afternoon task. The human team's communication was a marvel in itself. No lengthy discussions, no bureaucratic debates. A slight nod from Jack, a quick hand gesture from Maria, a barely perceptible grunt from Derek, and entire sections of the station began to transform. Vreen's scientific team had spent decades developing repair protocols. They had mathematical models, quantum simulation subroutines, and centuries of accumulated engineering knowledge. The humans were rewriting those models in real time, using what could only be described as organized chaos. "We rebuilt New Shanghai after the tectonic collapse of 2061, Maria said offhandedly, her cutting torch now doing something that looked physically impossible to a critical quantum junction. This is just routine maintenance." The station itself seemed to be responding to their touch. Fracture lines that should have been catastrophic began to seal. Quantum resonance matrices that were moments away from total collapse started to stabilize. It was as if the humans were speaking directly to the station's fundamental structure, coaxing it back from the brink of destruction. Derek pulled out a device that looked like it had been cobbled together from salvage. Half Earth technology, half alien components they'd presumably borrowed from previous missions. He connected it to a failing power conduit, and for a moment, the entire station seemed to take a collective breath. "Structural integrity increasing," Araya reported. "Quantum matrix realignment at 67% and climbing." The Zintok engineers could only watch in stunned silence. Their entire understanding of engineering was being dismantled in real time. These weren't just repairs. This was a fundamental reconstruction that defied every known principle of spatial engineering. Jack caught Vreen's bewildered expression and offered a rare smile. "Sometimes," he said, "you've got to break the rules to save the system." As the hours passed, the impossible continued to happen. Sections of the station that should have been beyond repair were not just stabilized but improved. The humans weren't just fixing the quantum spire. They were reimagining its entire structural concept. When the final critical junction was stabilized, Jack looked at his team and nodded. Another day at the office. The Zintok realized, with a mixture of terror and profound respect, that they were witnessing something unprecedented. These weren't just construction workers. They were architects of survival, engineers of the impossible. And they were just getting started. The holographic transmission flickered to life, casting an ethereal blue light across the quantum spire's repair bay. The Zintok engineering team, still reeling from the humans' unprecedented repair techniques, watched in stunned silence as the personal histories of Jack Rodriguez's team unfolded. Maria Santos appeared first, her image showing a younger version of herself standing amid the ruins of what was once the Amazon rainforest. The year was 2059, and ecological collapse had transformed one of Earth's most vibrant ecosystems into a nightmare of technological survival. Buildings rose from the devastated landscape like mechanical trees, constructed from salvaged materials and powered by experimental quantum solar hybrid systems. I was part of the Amazon reconstruction unit, Maria's recorded voice explained. We didn't just rebuild infrastructure. We reimagined how humanity could survive in a completely transformed environment. A hologram shifted, showing her leading a team of engineers and ecological specialists. They weren't just constructing buildings, they were creating living systems that could adapt, survive, and ultimately thrive in the most hostile conditions imaginable. Each structure was a testament to human innovation, a middle finger to the environmental catastrophe that had nearly destroyed their world. Derek Williams' history was no less brutal. His background played out in a series of rapid-fire images, the Pacific Rim tectonic event of 2055, where massive earthquakes had essentially redrawn the geological map of 3 continents. Cities reduced to rubble, infrastructure obliterated, millions displaced. We learned that survival isn't about maintaining what exists. Derek's voice narrated. It's about creating something new from the destruction. His military background as a Marine combat engineer became clear. Each reconstruction project was treated like a military operation, strategic, precise, but with an adaptability that traditional engineering could never match. Where others saw impossible challenges, Derek and his team saw opportunities for radical innovation. Jack Rodriguez's story was perhaps the most compelling. Miami, 2052. The megastorm that had transformed the entire southeastern United States into a nightmare of flooding, destruction, and total infrastructure collapse. His team had been among the first to implement what became known as adaptive urban reconstruction, a methodology that treated cities as living, breathing organisms. We don't rebuild, Jack's recorded message emphasized. We evolve. The Zintok engineers, led by Chief Engineer Zixtal, watched in growing understanding. These weren't just construction workers, they were survivors. Each team member carried the collective trauma and triumph of humanity's most challenging period, the Great Reconstruction era of the mid-21st century. Araya, the team's eye assistant, began providing additional context. Statistical overlays showed the scale of their previous projects. Billions of credits in infrastructure reconstruction, millions of lives saved, entire ecosystems reimagined and rebuilt. What the alien engineers saw as impossible, these humans saw as just another Tuesday. Reconstruction is more than technical skill, Maria's voice continued. It's about understanding complex systems, how they break, how they can be reimagined, how they survive. The holographic transmission revealed something profound. These weren't just technical experts. They were philosophers of survival, engineers of hope. Each scar, each modified tool, each unconventional technique was a lesson learned from humanity's most challenging moments. When the transmission ended, the Zintok engineering team sat in stunned silence. They had been preparing for a simple repair mission. Instead, they had encountered something far more significant. A team that didn't just understand engineering, but understood the fundamental nature of survival itself. Jack Rodriguez looked at Zixtal, a knowing smile playing across his weathered face. Ready to see what we can really do? He asked. The repair of the quantum spire was about to become a legend. The asteroid field looked like the universe's most violent junkyard. Millions of rock fragments, some the size of small moons, others no larger than a grain of sand, tumbled through the void with apocalyptic potential. At the center of this cosmic minefield sat the critical navigation hub that controlled traffic for 3 entire galactic sectors. And it was dying. Previous alien engineering teams had failed spectacularly. 5 separate missions had resulted in complete destruction, with each attempt causing more damage than the last. The Galactic Coordination Council had one final option: the human construction team. "We've got 3 standard cycles before total systemic collapse," Araya reported, her AI voice calm and clinical. "Probability of successful intervention, 0.03%. Jack Rodriguez looked at the holographic display and laughed. "Those are the best odds we've had all week." The navigation hub was a marvel of alien engineering, a massive spherical structure that looked like it had been grown rather than constructed. Quantum entanglement circuits pulsed with an inner light, creating complex patterns that would drive most biological minds to madness. Fracture lines spread across its surface like a terminal disease, each breach threatening to trigger a cascade of system failures that would strand millions of ships in deep space. Maria began her initial scan, her modified sensors probing the structure in ways the alien engineers had never considered. "It's not just a mechanical failure," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "This is a systemic breakdown. The entire structure is fighting itself." Derek was already preparing their equipment, a collection of tools that looked more like they belonged in a mad scientist's laboratory than a precision engineering mission. Quantum stabilizers modified with Earth construction tech, adaptive nano-repair systems cobbled together from salvaged components, cutting torches that could slice through materials considered indestructible by galactic standards. "We're not just going to repair this," Jack announced to the stunned Zintok observation team. "We're going to transform it." The first approach was nothing short of heresy to traditional engineering principles. Where alien teams had used precise, calculated interventions, the humans treated the navigation hub like a living organism. Maria's hands moved across quantum interface points, her touch suggesting a communication beyond simple mechanical repair. Derek deployed a series of nano-repair drones that moved with an organic fluidity. They didn't just patch. They adapted, learning the hub's internal structure in real time and creating solutions that rewrote the very concept of structural integrity. Zixtal and the other Zintok engineers watched in horror and fascination. Each human action violated every known principle of galactic engineering. They weren't following a repair protocol. They were engaging in what could only be described as technological shamanism. "Structural integrity increasing," Araya reported. "Quantum entanglement circuits stabilizing at 42.7% and climbing." The asteroid field seemed to sense the intervention. Massive rock fragments shifted, creating new threat vectors that would have caused any traditional team to abort the mission immediately. Jack's team didn't even pause. "Just like rebuilding Miami," Jack muttered, his hands dancing across a complex control interface that seemed to bend reality itself. "Except this time, our construction site is moving at several kilometers per second." Hours passed. The impossible continued to happen. Fracture lines began to seal. Quantum circuits that had been moments from total collapse started to regenerate. The navigation hub wasn't just being repaired, it was being reborn. When the final critical junction was stabilized, the observation team was silent. They had just witnessed something that would rewrite every engineering manual in the galaxy. Jack looked at Zixtal and grinned. "Another day at the office," he said simply. The impossible mission was complete, and humanity had just shown the galaxy what true engineering looked like. The psychological analysis of the human construction team became the most significant research project in galactic history. What the Zintok discovered went far beyond traditional understanding of engineering. It was a complete reimagining of how intelligent systems could be approached. Dr. Xilara, the lead synopsychological researcher, spent weeks studying every moment of the team's interactions. Their communication wasn't just verbal. It was a complex dance of micro-expressions, subtle body language, and an almost telepathic understanding that defied conventional communication models. Maria Santos emerged as the key to understanding their methodology. Where alien engineers saw mathematical equations, she saw living systems. Her approach to the navigation hub's repair wasn't just technical, it was almost spiritual. She spoke to the structure as if it were a living, breathing entity, her hands moving with a sensitivity that suggested she was listening to something beyond physical signals. "Every system has a language," Maria explained during one of her rare moments of reflection. "Most engineers are trying to translate. We're trying to have a conversation." Her background in ecological reconstruction became critical. Having rebuilt entire ecosystems after global environmental collapse, Maria understood that complex systems weren't just about individual components. They were about relationships, adaptability, and survival. Derek Williams brought a different perspective, pure tactical adaptation. His military engineering background meant he approached each challenge like a combat mission. Every repair was a strategic intervention, every modification a calculated risk designed to maximize survival potential. Araya, their AI assistant, played a crucial role that terrified the alien researchers. She wasn't just a computational tool, she was an active member of the team. Her algorithms learned and adapted in real time, creating solution matrices that seemed to defy traditional computational logic. "Humans don't solve problems," Jack would often say. "We negotiate with them." The psychological profile that emerged was unlike anything in Galactic records. These weren't just engineers, they were adaptive intelligence personified. Each team member carried a complex emotional toolkit that allowed them to read systems as living entities. During one critical analysis session, Dr. Xelura discovered something profound. The humans' approach to engineering was fundamentally different from any known civilization. Where others saw technical challenges, they saw opportunities for symbiotic transformation. Their repair of the navigation hub wasn't just a technical achievement. It was a form of communication. They had essentially taught an entire technological system how to heal itself, how to adapt, how to survive. The most terrifying revelation came from their personal histories. Each team member had survived global catastrophes that would have destroyed lesser species. The Miami megastorm, the Amazon ecological collapse, the Pacific Rim tectonic event. These weren't just historical footnotes. They were training grounds for a new form of adaptive intelligence. "We don't fix things," Derek once explained to a bewildered Zintok engineer. "We help them become what they need to be to survive." Araya's computational analysis became a breakthrough in understanding human cognitive processes. Her algorithms showed that the team's approach wasn't linear. It was simultaneously holistic and granular, able to zoom between macro and micro perspectives, with impossible speed and accuracy. The psychological warfare of their engineering was simple. They didn't see obstacles. They saw potential. When Dr. Xelura compiled her final report, the Galactic Research Council was stunned. These humans weren't just engineers. They were evolutionary catalysts, beings who could look at a broken system and see not just a repair manual, but a path to transformation. Jack Rodriguez looked at the assembled researchers and smiled. "We're just doing our job," he said simply. And in that moment, the galaxy realized that humanity was something entirely different, a species that didn't just survive. They reimagined survival itself. The moment of breakthrough came unexpectedly. Like most human innovations, Jack Rodriguez stood before the completely transformed navigation hub, his team surrounding him, while 1,000 alien engineers watched in stunned silence. What had begun as a simple repair mission had become a complete reimagining of technological potential. The hub wasn't just fixed, it had evolved. Quantum circuits that were once rigid and fragile now pulsed with an adaptive intelligence that seemed to breathe. Maria's modifications had essentially given the entire system a form of distributed consciousness. Derek's tactical adaptations had transformed its defensive capabilities beyond anything the original designers could have imagined. Structural resonance at 287% of original design parameters, Araya reported, her AI voice carrying the hint of what could only be described as pride. The Zintok lead engineer, Zixtel, approached the system with a mixture of terror and fascination. Holographic displays showed modifications that violated every known principle of galactic engineering. Where there should have been precise, mathematically perfect circuits, The humans had created something that looked more like a living organism. We didn't repair it, Jack explained, his hand casually touching a quantum interface that would have fried the neural networks of any other species. We taught it how to repair itself. The breakthrough wasn't just technological. It was philosophical. Maria's ecological reconstruction background had been key. She had approached the navigation hub like she once approached devastated ecosystems, not as a machine to be fixed, but as a system to be understood and nurtured. Each modification was a conversation, each repair a form of communication. Derek's military engineering principles had transformed the hub's defensive capabilities. What was once a simple navigation system was now a self-adapting network that could predict and neutralize potential threats with an intelligence that bordered on prescience. ARIA had been the true catalyst. Her quantum adaptive algorithms had essentially given the entire system a form of distributed intelligence. She wasn't just an assistant. She had become a bridge between human creativity and technological potential. The alien engineers could only watch as the humans demonstrated something beyond repair. They were showing a fundamental reimagining of what technology could be. Traditional engineering is about maintaining, Jack said to the stunned observation team. We're about evolution. The modifications defied comprehension. Quantum circuits that should have been impossible now existed. Adaptive algorithms created solutions to problems that hadn't even been conceived yet. The navigation hub was no longer just a technological system. It was a living, breathing entity. Zixtal's translation device struggled to capture the full complexity of what was happening. This wasn't just a repair. This was a technological rebirth. Probability of systemic failure, ARIA reported, reduced from 99.7% to 0.003%. The observation team was silent. They had just witnessed something that would rewrite every engineering manual in the galaxy. These weren't just construction workers. They were technological shamans, able to look at a broken system and see not just a repair manual, but a path to transformation. Derek's laugh broke the silence. Just another day at the office, he said, echoing Jack's favorite phrase. The navigation hub pulsed in response, as if agreeing. Humanity had just shown the galaxy that true engineering wasn't about maintaining what existed. It was about creating what could be. The news spread faster than quantum communication could track. In the weeks following the navigation hub's miraculous transformation, human engineering teams became the most sought-after problem solvers in galactic history. Requests flooded in from every known civilization. The Zornak Stellar Collective needed help stabilizing a collapsing Dyson sphere. The quantum concordance required a complete overhaul of their interdimensional communication network. The Centauri Preservation Council needed to reconstruct entire planetary ecosystems. Jack Rodriguez's team became legends, not just as engineers, but as something closer to technological miracle workers. Zixtal, once a skeptical observer, had become their most vocal advocate. The comprehensive research documenting their methods, Homo Faber, adaptive intelligence in technological reconstruction, became required reading in every major engineering academy across known space. The galactic communication networks buzzed with their achievements. Each mission became a case study in impossible problem-solving. Where traditional engineering saw limitations, the human teams saw opportunities for radical transformation. On the crystalline world of Lux Prime, they stabilized an entire planetary communication grid that had been failing for centuries. The Arch-K rebuilding consortium watched in stunned silence as Maria Santos essentially rewrote the fundamental principles of quantum signal transmission. Derek Williams' tactical approach to infrastructure reconstruction became a new field of study. Military engineering schools across multiple civilizations began incorporating human adaptation techniques into their core curricula. What was once seen as chaotic was now recognized as the most advanced form of systems thinking. Araya, their AI assistant, had become a breakthrough in artificial intelligence. Her adaptive algorithms were studied, copied, and implemented across hundreds of civilizations. She wasn't just a tool, she was a new model of collaborative intelligence. The psychological profiles of the team became legendary. Dr. Solara's comprehensive study revealed that their approach to engineering was fundamentally different from any known civilization. They didn't just solve problems. They engaged in a form of technological dialogue that reimagined the very concept of repair and reconstruction. Jack Rodriguez gave precisely 3 interviews during this period. Each one became an instant classic, quoted and studied by researchers across the galaxy. His simple philosophies cut through millennia of technical jargon. "We don't fix things," he said in one memorable transmission. "We help systems become what they need to be to survive." The economic impact was staggering. Civilizations that contracted human engineering teams saw exponential improvements in infrastructure, communication networks, and adaptive technologies. What had once taken centuries of incremental improvement could now be achieved in months. Maria's ecological reconstruction techniques became a new field of study. Entire planetary ecosystems that were considered beyond salvation were now being transformed. Her approach wasn't just technical, it was a form of technological ecology that treated complex systems as living, breathing entities. Derek's military engineering background transformed how civilizations approached infrastructure resilience. His techniques for adaptive defense systems became the new standard for technological protection. When the Galactic Engineering Consortium officially recognized the human team's achievements, it was more than an honor. It was a fundamental shift in how technological development was understood. Zickstall's final report was simple and profound. Humanity does not see the universe as it is. Humanity sees the universe as it could be. The repair of the navigation hub was no longer just a mission. It had become a turning point in galactic civilization. Jack Rodriguez looked at his team, a knowing smile playing across his weathered face. "Ready for the next job?" he asked. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what they would do next. The final mission would become the stuff of legend, a challenge that would define humanity's place in the galactic community forever. The quantum nexus was more than just a technological marvel. It was the central hub of galactic communication, a structure so complex that entire civilizations had spent millennia trying to understand its fundamental design. Located at the convergence of 3 major galactic arms, it controlled communication, transportation, and energy distribution for millions of star systems. And it was dying. Previous attempts at repair had failed spectacularly. Entire engineering teams had been lost. Civilizations had watched in horror as their primary communication network slowly disintegrated, with no hope of salvation. Jack Rodriguez's team was their final chance. They arrived with a collection of equipment that looked more like a salvage yard than a precision engineering kit. Modified quantum stabilizers, adaptive nano-repair systems, and an AI assistant that had become something closer to a sentient being than a simple computational tool. Aria's quantum adaptive algorithms had evolved beyond any known artificial intelligence. She was no longer just a tool. She was a collaborative partner, able to communicate with technological systems in ways that defied traditional understanding. Maria Santos approached the quantum nexus like a medical professional examining a critically ill patient. Her hands moved with a sensitivity that suggested she was listening to something beyond mere mechanical signals. Years of ecological reconstruction had taught her that every system, no matter how complex, had its own language of survival. Derek Williams analyzed the structural integrity with the precision of a military tactician. Where others saw an impossible challenge, he saw a series of strategic interventions. His modified scanning equipment probed the Nexus's quantum lattices, finding weaknesses that no other civilization had even conceived of existing. The alien observation team watched in a mixture of terror and fascination. These weren't just engineers. They were technological shamans, able to communicate with systems at a fundamental level. "We're not here to repair," Jack announced to the stunned Galactic Reconstruction Council. "We're here to help it survive." The first interventions were nothing short of miraculous. Quantum fracture lines that had resisted repair for centuries began to seal. Complex communication networks that were moments from total collapse started to regenerate. The quantum nexus wasn't just being fixed, it was being reborn. Aria's computational systems worked in perfect harmony with the human team. She wasn't just analyzing, she was participating. Her algorithms created solutions that rewrote the very concept of technological repair. Where traditional AI saw problems, she saw potential. Hours turned into days. The impossible continued to happen. Maria's ecological reconstruction techniques treated the Nexus like a living ecosystem. Derek's tactical modifications created adaptive defense mechanisms that made the entire structure more resilient than ever before. When the final critical junction was stabilized, the observation team was silent. They had just witnessed something that would rewrite every understanding of technological potential. The quantum nexus was no longer just a communication hub. It had become a living, adaptive system that could learn, grow, and survive. Jack looked at the stunned Galactic Reconstruction Council and smiled. "Just another day at the office," he said simply. But it was more than that. This was humanity's true gift to the galaxy. The ability to see potential where others saw only destruction. The ability to transform, to adapt, to survive. The quantum nexus pulsed with a new energy, a testament to human innovation. And in that moment, the galaxy understood that humanity was something entirely different, a species that didn't just survive, but reimagined survival itself. Epilogue. Decades later, the story of Jack Rodriguez's team would be told and retold across countless civilizations. They weren't just engineers. They were architects of possibility, living proof that true innovation comes from seeing beyond what exists to what could be. The navigation hub, the asteroid field, the quantum nexus, these were more than missions. They were declarations of humanity's potential. Just another day at the office.